My husband's girlfriend lives with us, and they want to do this forever. So my husband, M33, and I, F34, have been together for 12 years and married for 7. We also have a kid who is 2. My husband has been open about the fact that some of his previous relationships were poly, and we have always been open to general ethical non-monogamy. For example, we used to go to sex parties together and other examples. Fast forward to about 6 months ago when a friend of his came to the end of her marriage and quite urgently needed somewhere to stay, so we took her in. That was all well and good at first, and they were very close, but so were the 3 of us. There were nights when we all slept in the same bed because she couldn't face sleeping on her own. There were also nights when my husband slept in the bed with her at my suggestion because again she couldn't handle sleeping alone, but I struggled to share a bed with 3 of us just because of space. However, the topic of poly did come up a bit further down the line as a genuine option, and so they started spending every Friday night together, and honestly I was and am genuinely happy with this. This started as a nominally FWB thing, but naturally progressed into a relationship. I honestly don't think I have any issue with him seeing her, but the problem I am facing is that they want to live as a 3 forever. Get a bigger house and do this permanently, and I can't tell you why, but I'm really uncomfortable about permanently sharing my space like this. On the other hand, my husband's mental health has always been really bad, but since my meta has lived here, and there have been more of us around, it has been a lot better, so I really don't want to take this away from him. Really don't want to. So I have to find some way towards happiness for myself in this. Even though I work from home, and they both work out of the house, I never feel like I'm on my own anymore somehow, because wherever I look there are reminders that it's the 3 of us now, so I just feel permanently not at ease in my own home, and I don't know how to get past that. Also, she really wants us to move house so that we can have somewhere bigger, but also so that it doesn't feel like our house that she's then living in rather than something we share as equals. And I really don't want to transition to having potentially less time with my husband than I do now. At the moment, he's in my bed 4 nights a week, in her bed for 2 nights, and then we share the bed one night, all 3 of us. We bought a bigger bed so we could do this. It has to be said I really like my meta a lot of the time, and one of my hopes is that if she and I work on our relationship and get closer, this will get easier for me. But at the moment, I'm losing the home I thought I would grow old in, and I am worried I am losing half my husband. I don't know what I am looking for, but I am so worried right now. Relevant comments. Commenter. I can't tell you why, but I'm really uncomfortable about permanently sharing my space like this. Not that you need a reason for not having someone else move into your home, but unless I'm reading things wrong, it seems they kind of assumed it'd happen instead of asking how you'd feel about a roommate. This also doesn't seem like a good idea anyways. They've only been together for a short time, so not only would moving not be sound, but she just got out of a marriage. If you're worried about your husband needing to split time between you two, that is a reality of having multiple relationships. Is that something you feel you'd be okay with? Because this all just seemed to happen, and I'm wondering if you ever had the time to truly consider if this is right for you? Oop. I'm under a lot of pressure to make this work for me. My husband has not ever been truly happy in a long while, and having both of us around has transformed his mental health. I've expressed my worry that just swapping around which of us is unhappy isn't progress, even acknowledging that I'm not as unhappy as he was, but long term, might I be? But there doesn't seem to be a middle ground he can consider. I'm hoping some support from a poly-friendly therapist will help us to articulate our needs and find a workable middle ground. Commenter. Your husband's happiness shouldn't be so dependent on everyone cohabiting TBH. Of course he's happy right now. Him lending a friend a helping hand out of their marriage ended up with him having a live-in girlfriend with his wife's permission. Not that he shouldn't rely on those close to him. I have mental issues myself, but it's not your or your meta's job to keep him well, especially when it's at the cost of your happiness. A good husband, partner, person would understand that, depressed or not. Also, neither of you should be playing the oppression Olympics, not the most apt term, but a no. Don't think about who's less happy than the other. Your husband's mental health needs treatment, not another partner in a complex and unplanned living situation. At the end of the day, it's the home you share with your husband and your child. This should always be a 2 yes, 1 no sort of situation. You have the right to choose who lives with you. Commenter. Unfortunately, it really seems like you're at an impasse here. Have you made it clear that you're not interested in this to your husband? Oop. I have really tried, but he's very clear that this is absolutely what he has needed for a long time. not just being poly, fine, but also us all living together. I think I've at least got across my very strong reservations, and we are now going to try putting everything we have into how we can genuinely make this work. Seeing a poly-friendly therapist together, as a three as well as in our various pairs including me and my meta, and doing the work to find a balance of together and separate bits of life that actually works for us. Commenter: what about your needs though? Oop. I really want to learn to compromise. There are a lot of ways I've got my own way over the years, and it's fair that I at least give this my best shot. Commenter: but why are you the only one compromising? Oop. I don't know. I really need to find ways to stand my ground. Everything gets turned around on me when we start talking about it, so I think I may genuinely need the therapist to help me communicate here. And to a deleted reply. She's been living here for 6 months already, since before they got together. Update. Cohabiting just got harder and harder, and I was getting less and less of my husband's love, attention, and even compassion. Friend then bought a house and husband was going to love there too, then 3, then even 5 nights a week. Nothing I said was right anymore. I was the villain, apparently uncompassionate, selfish, a bad communicator, not seeing it from husband's or friend's point of view. Increasingly excluded in my own life. And unsurprisingly, about 6 weeks ago, husband ended our marriage, ostensibly for other reasons about our relationship, but it may surprise you not at all to learn that he is now moving in with friend in the house she has bought, and that I am not now on speaking terms with her at all after some increasingly manipulative behavior from both of them, but especially her. Update. 9 months later. So I posted here ages ago about my husband and his GF essentially putting a lot of pressure on me to be poly. It's not enough for you to want it, you have to actually want it, rather than in any way acknowledging that I didn't want it. It was bloody awful. I couldn't do it, it's not who I am, and no matter how I tried to say that they weren't having it. In the end, my husband broke up with me, ostensibly not because of me not wanting to be poly, but I mean it absolutely was that. His GF is hugely manipulative and had swung him from being deeply in love with me to completely not, and thinking I'm a terrible person within the space of a year. I've got my faults to be sure, but I didn't deserve any of this. I've been doing a lot of work on myself to identify and understand what happened to me and the way they abused and manipulated me. Part of me is also concerned that the GF is also effectively doing the same to my ex, but that's his problem, not mine. I've recently met the GF's monogamous ex, and that's been eye-opening. It feels like she's got a playbook. She's treated her ex badly and did similar to me and debatably to my ex. My ex has also been quite controlling over the years. I'm so much healthier out of this situation, and it's better for me. I'm heartbroken for losing what I thought was a happy marriage and for being so disillusioned about what I thought we had. This has really pulled the wool from my eyes. And it's awful being away from my very small kids half the time. I'm hyper-vigilant about their welfare, and I'm so worried for them, but they seem to be okay. In short, I have to accept that some of you are happy and healthy in good poly relationships, but if that's not your experience, if it's being used by your partner or their partner to have their cake and eat it, if you're not happy, listen to your gut, to your heart, to your friends. Get out. The sooner you escape, the less, I hope, you might get hurt. Relevant comments. Commenter: I'm sorry you were treated that way. Out of curiosity, when folks told you on that post that this wasn't a good idea and that your situation didn't seem healthy and sustainable, did that help or hurt? Did you feel like all the happily polyam people telling you that this had red flags prepared you for the end? Or, I ask because I want this sub to be as helpful to folks like you as possible and wonder what we could be doing better. Oop. I think it helped. It started to validate for me that the way I was feeling was okay, that I wasn't wrong to feel like this wasn't working. What I couldn't do was address that in a way that my ex or his GF would ever be equipped to listen to. They couldn't, and still can't, see the impact of their actions or understand that they've done anything wrong. I think Reddit posts advising caution, rather than straight up, leave him now, were the most helpful. Those that came alongside me and engaged with what I was experiencing and feeling. So, that sounds really difficult, and I'm wondering if you have realized that some of these are big red flags, such as responses that were nuanced. But nothing in the known universe is going to make someone like my ex or his GF listen when they don't want to. So nothing in the comments section could have changed anything, but it did really help to feel less like I was losing my mind and less like I was on my own. Thank you. Commenter. Oh, I remember your post, sad face. I think everyone here could see the red flags with both of them, but I'm so sorry it had to end this way. It's not fun realizing you were disillusioned, and you two were together for so long. I wish you only happiness and healing as you embark on this new chapter in your life. Oop. Thank you. It's weird reading the comments now and seeing so much more clearly the lack of respect he and she were treating me with. It's awful. I'm doing a lot of work and giving myself time to be on my own and do the learning to make sure I don't let anyone treat me like that again. Story 2. Ada for losing it and calling my father a weak, pathetic man in front of his family. My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He is extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked and stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought APs into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto myself, in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to Dad about something Mom did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Heck, he would even try and justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there and looked sullen. Didn't say a dang thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful, and I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get in a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in the divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her APs. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and fully understands the situation with my family. I have learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, you'll see, and instead put that energy to my future. I have been extraordinarily low contact / near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there as it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him, but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a coworker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair and was positioned to have a very favorable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his coworker should work instead to forgive his wife and, by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years, and he never learned a dang thing. I turned to him and asked if he was freaking serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted how he was a pathetic father, pathetic man. His family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who would rather his son be treated like CRP than defend him because he's a freaking coward. No one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather freak half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it and am now going to resume my therapy. That's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded Ahai always needed to be said onto him. Extended family is pretty mixed with reactions. His brothers/my uncles said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are ticked I did that in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. Relevant comments. Commenter. It sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're resuming therapy to process this further. OOP. Yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it. Commenter. He sounds like a gentle, kind, and well-meaning person. You directed what is very clearly anger and resentment for your mother at him. It's a bit more complicated than being a jerk or not. You seem to have got some catharsis out of it. I just don't believe he is the one you really wanted to scream at, and from the sounds of it, he was also a victim of your mother too. And while he was the adult and should have known better, he obviously didn't. Being non-confrontational isn't some character flaw. It's psychological, and he probably needs therapy himself. Screaming at him and demeaning him actually sounds like something your mother probably did/would do, and I worry about you if that is something that actually made you feel better about yourself. OOP. Yes, I fully admit he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim who had a support system he never wanted to use. He fully let me be a victim my entire childhood because apparently it was too much effort to try, and to this day doesn't believe he needs therapy. Commenter. All I can say is based on your post, and this interaction is your anger is deeply misguided, and you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. OOP. Oh, trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she is gone, and there is no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I had hoped, though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face-to-face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, his friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would have maybe have at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider he should have done things differently. OOP getting therapy due to his past trauma. OOP. Yeah, either way I need to hop back on the horse for therapy. It'll be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really have had to look back as to how far this pattern of enabling goes back. I know they all did what they could to try and help, but it always seemed like there were times that more active measures could be taken. Times where people should have been far more stern with his addressing his behavior. The older generation on his side are the classical, they're family, and we stick together no matter what, and I have to think whether his passivines and enabling is something he picked up on his own or something he learned from his own parents. Update 1. 2 days later. Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the YTA. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringe-worthy. 1. Some of them were very angry, and they kind of confused me at first until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile and saw rants about double standards or complete non-sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and they were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life too. Some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world, because so many people forget how they are part of the abuse themselves. 3. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, and I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong. She'd known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic family, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family since my father will always be there. I told her don't worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out. So that part's fine. Looked like kind of an butt in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed of her my intentions to resume more therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion. that it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been privately and not in front of everyone. I also told them that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, for now until I can handle being around him, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way I need to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kind of just going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, and they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freak out resulted in my grandmother having a mini freak out of her own when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it has become a bit of an open family secret my father's failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him, and for my grandparents, it's always just uneasy. But seeing me the other day, and how it still affects me so much has really liked in for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in then telling me that they have decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being, and have given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try and reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could relay to them that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine and am sorry to them as well for ruining the day, which again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages with the general consensus that it's okay, with some older members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I texted my father hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him, and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but I instead asked him first thing if the coworker he gave the advice to took it well. He just said that neither him nor several coworkers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him this should be goodbye and I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public benching moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. Commenter. This is an interesting one. The ability to control one's failures, yes, that's what I'll call your situation, is very powerful. You'll do all right. Commenter. Congratulations sincerely on owning your actions. No matter how justified, you acknowledged your outburst was uncomfortable for others and likely not appropriate in that setting. It takes incredible strength of character to admit your failings, even if you have no idea how else you could have reacted in that moment. That you immediately communicated that to your loved ones is a huge sign of how respectable and genuine you are as a person. I really hope you keep moving forward from this situation with the same mindset. Good luck. Commenter. NTA. It sounds like you handled things well after what happened. You took responsibility by apologizing to your girlfriend and family, and it's clear you're committed to moving forward by focusing on therapy and healing. It's understandable that you snapped given everything you've been through. It's also clear that your outburst made your family realize the impact your dad's behavior had on you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you needed to do to move on, and it seems like you're on the right track now. Update 2. 3 weeks later. Things have progressed over the last couple weeks, and I now have broader context about my family. Long story short is, there was a lot hidden from me. My father was an absolute jerk to his family, and that's why they treat him the way they do. I got a lot of feedback, including the compilation posts on Best of Redditor updates and Boru, and one thing that stood out was people questioning if my extended family could have contributed to the abuse, and that's why he was so feeble. And since I was trying to work on my relationship with my family, I figured it was time to ask the hard questions before going that far. I met with my dad's brothers, who invites me out to a popular lunch spot. For context and clarity, Dale is the oldest brother. He is married and has a daughter and a son. My father is the second oldest. Self-explanatory. John is the second youngest, also married with a son. Bill is the youngest, married with 3 daughters. So anyways, we met up and I ripped the band-aid off, asking about my father growing up, what he was like beyond the basics I know, and what really is going on with their relationship. Dale sighed and basically summed up that besides what I know, there is a lot of backstory I'm unfamiliar with that they never told me about, simply because it was never the time nor the place to. What I've always known is that my father was fairly normal when he was young. A little shy but fantastic academically, played sports occasionally, had a close-knit relationship with his brothers, and meeting my mom in high school junior year made everything go downhill. What I didn't know was that my father was a guiding figure for his 2 younger brothers, was generally seen as one of the nicest people, with a bright future ahead of him. My grandparents adored him, and he even became a little bit of a golden child, but no one minded. The reason his family doesn't respect him is what happened to his behavior when my mother got attached to him. It first started simple. My mother acted rude and distant to the family. They weren't huge fans, but my father loved her, so they tolerated it. She became possessive and slowly isolated my father and convinced him to give up his ambitions and goals. Family became concerned and spent a long time trying to talk to him and convince him to leave. My father didn't budge and began to lash out. When I was born, my extended family tried to talk to my father about my mother's attitude. My father was angry and threatened to report them for harassment. He was in denial about her behavior. When Dale's wife was having fertility issues, my mother messaged her appalling and cruel things. When Dale was ticked and went to talk to my father, he told Dale to drop it and even justified it. Dale punched him, and police almost got involved. Dale hated him going forwards. John grew to hate him when my mother insulted his son due to mild physical disabilities. My father cracked a joke about what she said. John hated him then. Finally, Bill, who always idolized my father, tried to inform my father that my mother made a pass at him and urged divorce. My father responded with a maddening call of utter hate and relationship-ending words. To sum it all up, the more time my father spent with my mother, the more he began to repeat her attitude. When they all signs of abuse to me and tried to intervene, my father threatened to lie, to accuse them of worse things. My mother had money and lawyers and could make their lives heck if they tried, and my father would gladly let her. They were stuck and could only do so much at a time. The older members of the family, like the grandparents, great-aunt and uncles, and such, believe in the traditional mindset of family sticking together no matter what, while the generations further down want to keep a distance from him. They're all stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's more. They told me out. It was all essentially that my father died on the hill for my mom, ruining his relationship with his brothers in the process. And when she died and destroyed him, he probably had to realize it was all for nothing. My grandparents seem to not want to accept the fact that he was lost, or maybe they hope he can fix his life. Who knows? This was a lot to process and was only confirmed by my father himself when he called me to ask about family therapy with us. I cut to the chase and asked if what I heard was true. He said yes. I would have agreed to maybe some family therapy, but now I have no idea. Update: 13 days later. I came to the decision that it was time to cut off my father for good. The more I learned about how he was, the more I came to the realization that nothing good would come out of having him in my life. I'm also going to put some minor distance between myself and extended family on his side until I can process things more. There's just a lot of things to work through there. I met up with my father one last time in a coffee shop to talk things over. I asked him one last time, why? Why did he do all this? Why did he let his wife treat everyone like crap? Why did he treat his family and me like crap for her? Why did he do all this? He tried to weasel his way out, but I absolutely demanded to know. And he basically answered that it was because he loved her. Yep, it was that stupid of an answer. He loved her and just clung on to her no matter what she did. No matter how much she hurt him or others, he was an insecure man who just latched himself on the first woman who showed him attention. Even when she slowly destroyed his life, he thought it was better than trying again. I just got up and told him to fix his life, but I won't be a part of it, and I hope he has the sense to understand why. No matter how he tried to word it, I had two abusive parents. He didn't say anything, just stared at me. Which leads to last night. I got a call from my grandparents that the night before my dad tried to call his brothers and make peace. Unfortunately, from what they said, he did it in the most half-assed avoidant way possible, sparing himself any guilt. That didn't go well. After recent events and old wounds being dug up, they gave him a verbal lashing that made mine look microscopic in comparison. My dad hung up and lost his crap, decimated his entire apartment before packing up what was left before driving off. They only found out because one of the brothers came to check up on him. From what they can tell from the few texts they have, he's lost his mind after decades of crap and is driving off to the other side of the country to start fresh. Also, from the minimum communication they have with him, he's acting incredibly vile towards them, and they say he seems to be acting just like my mother at it. Things are progressing/spiraling very quickly, and I'm expecting this whole insanity parade to come to a conclusion within a few days at this rate. Won't make any real update until I have all the facts, but I'm just glad I made the decision to move on. Update. 3.5 months later. For those who stuck around, I'd say it's over, and about as wrapped up as can be. My girlfriend/fiancé and I are getting married later this year. My father is alive. He lost his crap and spiraled, but a couple weeks later came back. His apartment obviously barred him from coming back and are going after him for legal and financial damages. He has no job anymore. He is staying with my grandparents. He has hit the absolute lowest point and has finally taken responsibility for his life, his choices, and his damaged relationships. It's too late for a lot of the family, but his parents are seemingly giving some help since he's finally trying to fix things. However, the extended family as a whole has kind of blown up. My father kind of became a mascot for deeper family issues that have become worse over time. There are far too many to go over. When he finally got called out, everyone figured there was no use in ignoring everything else going on. Minor feuds have formed. Some people aren't talking to each other. Some have entered marriage counseling and family therapy. People don't want to live by the family lifestyle anymore. My fiancé and I have decided to distance ourselves. We were kind of disappointed seeing how, since her family is insanely toxic, we could lean on mine. But I've come to realize mine has far too many issues to be reliable. We have a fantastic group of friends, so we will be fine. And that's about it. I'm going to be wrapping this up and moving on to a far less bitter lifestyle. I'll stick around for a little longer to elaborate on anything if anyone wants. Story 3. AITA if I decide to contact my estranged son? Hello, everyone. I don't know if this is the right subreddit as I'm new with it, so don't hesitate to tell me. So I am a 42 years old dad and I have a wife, let's call her Amanda. We have two sons together, let's call them Wyatt, 20 years old, and William, 18. The thing is, since my oldest turned 18, we have been no contact. To make it simple, on his 18th birthday, we had planned a party, but when we got home, he was nowhere to be found. Most of his stuff was gone. My son moved out at 18. We didn't know why, and it's been 2 years. He's blocked us all, even his little brother, whom he was so close just the day before leaving. It's tearing the family apart. Amanda still cries herself to sleep sometimes. William is a shell of himself, and so am I. He isn't staying at extended family's house, so until now we really had no clue where he was. But last night, I was at a restaurant with coworkers when I saw one of his high school friends. We started talking about it. He saw how desperate and heartbroken I was still 2 years after, and I guess out of guilt he actually told me what happened. Basically, we are from Idaho, and he moved to Seattle for a fresh start. Apparently, my son is GY, and he preferred to cut contact with us instead of coming out to us and then supposedly being disowned. He apparently said he believed we would prefer to have no son at all than a GY son. And I mean, I understand where he is coming from. Living in a small town in Idaho, where everyone knows each other and goes to church, I get why someone like him would be so scared to be true to himself here. But I'm going to be honest. I don't care. It was a shock, sure, a hard pill to swallow. I've even showed homophobic behavior before, but when it comes to Wyatt, I realized I just don't care. I just want him to be happy. I just want my son back. I spent the whole day trying to find his Instagram, and I actually did. I want to tell him how much I love him and that I don't care. But I don't know if he would like that. He left for a reason. AITA if I contact him? Also, I didn't tell my wife, William, or everyone else. Should I? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Sadly, why would you think your son would feel comfortable coming out to you if you have been homophobic before? And I have news for you, being homophobic, but not when it applies to your own son, makes you even worse in my eyes. Anyone who feels fine hating on somebody else's child, but changing your tune when it's your own speaks to your lack of character. Your son left hoping for a better life. Leave him alone and hope he has found it. If he ever wants to contact you again, let it be his decision. I think you should tell your wife and your other son. William should know why his brother left so he doesn't feel any guilt about it. OOP. Thanks for the harsh but necessary truth. I will work on myself. This whole ordeal has made me realize what kind of person I am, and I don't like it. Also, I will tell my wife and son tonight. OOP responds to multiple comments on needing to do better for his estranged son. OOP. I am willing to change for my son because I love him so much. I believe that his decision made me realize how much I've failed as a dad, and I owe him this. I'm truly ashamed he felt he had to cut contact to be himself. So yes, I will accept him. Thanks so much. Commenter 2. So, here's the thing. You created an environment where your child did not feel safe. In fact, he felt so unsafe that he left without even a whisper. That speaks volumes to me. But then you literally cyber-stalked him to find him on Instagram. Do you honestly believe that this will make him feel safe? It won't. Trust me. My advice. If you truly want to change your ways, start by volunteering for causes like Trevor Project or something similar in your area. Start becoming involved and making a true difference in the world, so other kids can have a safe space when their own parents reject them. If your church teaches homophobia, stop attending that church and find one that is inclusive. They do exist, believe it or not. Basically, I'm telling you to start working on the man in the mirror and be the change that your son would be proud of. Until you do that, you have no hope of reconciling with your son. Do not contact him. Let his friend know that you would like to speak with him, but let him make the first move. Do better. Commenter 3. YTA for having made homophobic comments in front of your GY son, which ultimately made him feel unacceptable to you, but I do feel. If you are ready to truly accept and love the man he is, then some effort to heal the divide between you is in order. That said, you have to be willing and to be able to accept him, not just be nice at first and then try to change him. He clearly left because he knew you would harangue him for this. I have a GY grandson. Sadly, for religious reasons, his parents do not accept him. It was a very painful journey for him, but he has worked through this and now he totally rejects his parents. It's a mess, but I can tell you that my GY grandson is one of the finest persons you could ever find, and that, to me, is what matters in the measure of a man. Don't bother to try to reconnect unless you can truly stand up for him and accept him. He left, I'd suspect, because he could not count on you for this kind of treatment. To answer your specific question, NTA for wanting to reconnect with your estranged son if you can do so with an open heart and mind. Update, 2025, 2 days later. Hello everyone. I posted days ago about my oldest son Wyatt, who moved out at 18 because he was GY and scared of rejection. Your response was overwhelming, as harsh it was, the truth was necessary. As you advised, I decided not to contact him yet, ready to make efforts to prove him I've changed when I do contact him. But I also decided to tell my wife and my other son, William. So I sat them down and told them what I told you guys. How I met one of Wyatt's friend when I was out, how he told me everything about Wyatt and how much we should love and support him regardless of who he is, etc. And that's when the shocking news come. William already knew everything. Apparently, 6 months after he left, Wyatt called William and told him everything. William didn't tell me much about what was said, but I know that they kept in contact. They text on a daily basis, and that Wyatt asked him not to tell anything to us. William, always loyal, did just that. Long story short, my wife was crying because she didn't realize how awful she had been acting, and William ended up texting Wyatt to tell him we knew somehow and that we loved him no matter what. Then Wyatt called me later, and while it was awkward at first, it quickly got better as we were catching up to life. That he was struggling with students' loans, but that he was still sewing great. I offered to gather money for his tuition, and he said, "I'll think about it." We talked a lot more. It was mainly my wife and I apologizing and telling him how much we love him, not matter what, and that we're proud of him, that we are willing to change for him. He said he will be calling us in a few days, and he will maybe visit this weekend. I genuinely didn't expect things to go this way, and I realize I'm so lucky he's even willing to talk to me. I swear I'll make it right and love him no matter what. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You and your wife are really lucky he will even talk to you. I can only imagine what he heard over the years from you two to make him leave the way he did. OOP. I am well aware of this chance and extremely grateful for it. I will make it up to him, no matter what. Commenter 2. Well done. A tip. I know you offered money to help out, but right now, it can come across as buying forgiveness or bribing him. If you do want to help him financially, it's important that you clearly communicate and stick to that there are no strings or conditions attached. If you give him money and then bring it up when he doesn't visit often enough or don't forgive you fast enough, then you've poisoned the well twice over. Let him know that you want to help but understand that it's not a fast ticket to his good grace and that you won't push it. OOP. Thanks for the advice. Commenter 3. You're doing exactly what a good parent should. Taking responsibility, owning your mistakes, and showing unconditional love. The fact that Wyatt is open to reconnecting speaks volumes about his love for you two, despite everything. It's amazing that William maintained that bond with his brother and that your family is taking steps to rebuild trust and create a more supportive dynamic. Keep showing up for Wyatt. Words are a great start, but actions will show him you truly mean it. Wishing your family the best as you move forward together. Story 4. My boyfriend, 24M, threatened to break up over Miss Dior and now won't talk to me, 22F, because I laughed. Hi guys, my boyfriend, 24M, and me, 22F, have been together for almost 2 years now. Aside from some small bumps in the road, we have been in a very good place throughout the whole relationship. However, last night things escalated over, in my opinion, something super dumb. But he thinks differently of that, and now stopped talking to me. It started when we were on bed. He was gaming and I was on my laptop, looking to order a new perfume. Since I stopped my job to focus on studying, I don't have as much income. So I decided to not get the expensive perfume I usually go for, Miss Dior. I thought it'd be better to find a body spray with a resembling scent. As he was looking over my shoulder, he asked me what I was doing, so I explained. He then reacted saying I wore Miss Dior in our first period of dating and it is my smell, and how it was one of the things that attracted him to me. I must admit this made me a bit annoyed, because I'd rather get that perfume too, but it's just not responsible to do so right now. He started rambling on how I care more about saving money than I care about him. I said that's not true, but then he kept saying his hypersensitivity issues can't deal with adjusting to a new scent. I said I'd find a scent similar to my old one, but he wasn't content. At this point he said he'd have to break up with me if I would go for another scent. I found this hilarious and thought he surely must be joking, so I laughed, which made him go silent. I let him be, because I was really annoyed, and we went to sleep. Now he left early morning and doesn't respond to my texts or calls. I have no idea what to do, and I'm starting to doubt how I handled the situation. Did I fail him by not taking his hypersensitivity into account? Top comments. Commenter. I'm concerned that you are even asking this question. This boyfriend of yours tried to assert that you must stick with the Dior perfume and never once offered to buy it? What is wrong with him? In any case, his reaction to your perfume choice is very strange. What are you asking us if you did something wrong? Commenter. Threatening to end the relationship because you don't stick to the brand of perfume he likes. Say that aloud. He is holding the relationship hostage because you didn't smell a certain way. Commenter. He started rambling on how I care more about saving money than I care about him. Did he offer to buy it for you? This is some of the dumbest crap I've ever heard. Sorry. OFC, if you're in saving money mode, you're going to pull back on admittedly frivolous purchases, and any regular partner with their head on straight would be glad they had a frugal partner when circumstances demand. He wants you to overspend in order to satisfy his pants feelings. Update post. 5 days later. Wow, first of all, thanks everyone who gave me advice and some tough love. I did not expect so many of you to help me and definitely teared up at some of your replies. After I posted this, I was a bit of a mess, but after hours of ignoring me, he texted me late in the evening and asked me to meet up because he does not want us to be in a bad place. I really wanted to talk to him, at least to clear things up, so I went to his place. When I got there, he acted a bit disappointed still, but he did say he didn't want us to fight. I felt the same, but also took your advice to heart, the idea of letting him buy a bottle. However, for some context, I do think he might be on the spectrum. No diagnose, but his dad is too, and it'd make sense. So I did want to show him I care and take his hypersensitivity seriously. Therefore, I decided to suggest we pay half/half for a new Miss Dior, and then until that one would be finished, I'll make sure to do research to find a really good dupe. He was not as convinced, told me it wasn't my birthday anytime soon. I explained that I understood, but we'd have to both compromise. Well, to quote his literal words, "If you're such a feminist, you should be so financially too." This got me fuming. I had no words, so this time I left. As per your advice, in the replies, I did some thinking about the rest of our relationship. I realized other things in our relationship that at the time didn't sit quite right with me, were situations of him being controlling and self-concerned. Situations I always considered as little things he'd mean differently or would learn from. I was wrong. You were right. I asked him to meet up today, and I dumped his butt. I feel terrible right now, but I know I'm better off. So, anyone advice for a cheap, nice body spray? Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, that was a difficult decision, but the right one. I don't know where you live, but in the UK/Ireland Aldi does a great Miss Dior dupe on occasion. It's called Perfect Pink. OOP. We do have an Aldi here, so I'm going to check it out. Thank you. Commenter, good for you. He sounded unreasonable. I would have said that he should pay the difference between the perfume you would have bought and the perfume he wanted you to buy, but his comments are so out of line it's not even worth thinking about anymore. OOP. I didn't even think about this. It would have been a good reaction, but since he thinks I have to pay everything because I'm a feminist, I don't think he would have been okay with that either. Commenter. I'm so tired of people weaponizing feminism. Good riddance. OOP. This? I always found it very hard to be mad at him for long. But when he said this, I felt like he showed his true colors and I was so done. Commenter. What did he say when you broke up with him? OOP. He mumbled something along the lines of, "Good. I deserve better." But after that he did text me to say sorry and if we can talk again. So he's not very consistent. Commenter. Good on you for throwing him out. OP. I'm glad you also got recommendations for a dupe perfume, although maybe a change of fragrance may not be a bad idea so you don't associate it with him. OOP. Thank you a lot. I was thinking the same thing. I feel like it's a good time to reinvent myself, starting off with a new signature scent. Hee. Ada for losing it on my husband and MIL after she hit our son. I'm F30 and my husband is 29. We have a 3-year-old son. He is from South America. I'll call him Juan. He came to my country as an immigrant and can now stay permanently if he wants to. I've only met my MIL in person on the day of our wedding, and she seemed like a nice old Latin lady. I'll call her Maria. She recently came to the country for a few weeks. Juan invited her, so she could meet our son and see the wonders of our country, like gray skies and old buildings and old people. She absolutely loved our son and was so happy to see him and play with him. Everything went well, but one day I left him with her for a moment while Juan and I went shopping for dinner. We were out for less than half an hour, and when we came back our son was crying and came running to me as soon as he saw me come through the door. I asked Maria what had happened and she said he was misbehaving, so I hit him with a spoon and he started to cry. I couldn't believe what she had said, so I asked her to repeat it and she did, saying it as if she was proud of it. I asked her why she was so proud of hitting my son. She said she only hit him once, as if that was better. This started an argument. She said that children need to be hit once in a while or they'll become delinquents. She said that all her children were regularly hit with spoons or sandals and they all turned out fine. I couldn't stand it, so I told her to get out. She could stay in a hotel that wouldn't let her near my son again. She was so angry and started insulting me in Spanish, which I only half understood. It took me 3 hours to get her out of the house. Then I continued to argue with Juan because he said nothing the whole time. He said he didn't like it, but it was true that they turned out well. I said corporal punishment is never okay, but that made him angry. He said, I challenge you to find a single mama Latina who has never hit her children, not even once. But that's the way we were brought up because otherwise we would have become weak men. And then he went on to say that I was suggesting that an entire culture of millions of people had been brought up wrong and that was racist. That is the short version, because we ended up arguing most of the night. I didn't let Maria see our son until I went back to her country, and Juan went to sleep with a friend. All my friends put it down to culture shock and that I'm crazy to die on that hill, and Juan is still very angry with me. So, Ada? And racist? Edit. Thanks all for your support. Thanks for clarifying it isn't a cultural thing. Yes, there is older people in my own country who still defend corporal punishment, but him inciting that this is a cultural thing and therefore shouldn't criticize it was bullocks. I try to contact him to talk, but he keeps leaving me on read while uploading stories at a pub at the same time. I'm furious, honestly, but I'll see what I can do. Ada has no consensus bot. OP was NTA. Top comments. Commenter 1. NTA. It's not a race issue. My Eastern European mother would do the same. Just because that's the way it always was doesn't make it any less abusive. You need to talk to your husband about how you want to parent your son. It sounds like you haven't had to resort to hitting so far, so why start now? Just because your MIL is incapable of managing a toddler? Commenter 2. Has anyone explained to Juan that OP is not a mama Latina, and this is not how children are raised today? It has nothing to do with an entire culture being brought up wrong. The child is 3. He's only met this grandmother recently and she conks him with a spoon. Great way to get to know your grandmother. Commenter 3. He was pretty quick to call you racist because you disagreed with something. That's so BS. It comes across as very manipulative. NTA. Update. 4 months later. Hi everyone. It's been a while. I had forgotten about this account, but I was cleaning this computer before selling it and I was still logged in. So, on my last post, my MIL came in to visit our country. MIL and my husband Juan are from South America. We left her alone with the baby for a moment, only to find out she had hit him because he was behaving like a baby. My husband defended her and called me racist because, according to him, every Latin American parent hits their kids and it's okay, but it's not okay with me at all. So, the situation kept going on for a while. This became a huge issue in our marriage. And then Juan confessed that he had also hit our son when I wasn't home. He believes that is the only way to discipline a child and that gentle parenting doesn't work. That was it for me. The problems got bigger and bigger while he kept insisting that this way of parenting is the reason why Latin Americans are more resilient than northern countries, and that people in here are too soft and sensitive. We started fighting every single day, and then I just asked for a divorce. After that, he became so verbally violent that now we communicate through lawyers only. I have plenty of evidence of him confessing to hitting our son, while he in his testimonies confirms it but says, is not that serious. This is stressful and I'm not doing well, so I have to sell a few things to pay for bills and debts. I'm going for full custody while he is doing the same, claiming that I'm an unfit mother for not teaching our son discipline. Well, enough of my drama. I have to go and do something else. Thanks everyone. ETA. I wasn't expecting so many people to read this, but wow, thanks everyone. To be clear, my husband wasn't beating our son in a way that could put his life in danger, but for example, wrapping a spoon in clothes so when it hits, still hurts but leaves no marks on the skin. He described this to me as a way to make me see that is not that serious, but is still unacceptable. This is not an attempt to make Latin people look like abusive parents, but one really thinks that because growing up he normalized it, he really thinks that everybody does it, and the people who wasn't raised that way are weak. And yes, we had talked about how to raise our child, but I always thought that not hitting them ever was obvious. I'm not sure when I might update with something important. I don't even have a court date yet, so it will take a while, but I'll be reading your comments. Edit 2. Thanks for all of your support, but I can't keep reading your stories of child abuse. I'm so sorry. I'm glad the majority of you are doing better now, but I just can't keep reading them. It's actually making me feel so bad. That's the downside of having empathy. Sorry. Top comments. Commenter 1. Thanks for standing up for your kid. You're a good mother. Your husband isn't but, to say the least. I have a Latina mother, and she never even attempted to hit me once in my first 20 years of life. I moved to a different country when I got married, and actually defended me when my dad was about to hit me when I was around 7 to 8. Hitting oftentimes create adults with a lot of stress, anxiety, and fear to voice out their feelings. Commenter 2. NTA. Hitting a baby is never okay. They can't learn discipline at that stage, only fear and pain. You are doing the right thing, OP. Commenter 3. Exactly, Childhood abuse and trauma creates scars that are evident even in adulthood. You are doing right by your child. Good job. Commenter 4. Stay strong. You're doing the right thing for your son.